Bucktails, Marabou versus Flash. When should you use one over the other? What's the benefits? What's the negatives of it? We're going to see if we can answer some of these questions, and we're going to start right now. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I got a really cool question from one of our viewers, and it was ILL Muskie Hunter. You'll see it right here. And he asked, he's like, I'm wondering if I'm using the wrong bucktail because he uses Marabou at times, he uses Flash at times, and he's not sure if he should use one versus the other. So I thought about it for a bit, and I said, you know what? I'll reach out to Johnny Dadson because he knows a thing or two about bucktails, and we'll see what Johnny had to say. And there's some general rules maybe that one bucktail will be better in some situations versus the other. When I reached out to Johnny Dadson, I asked him, I said, you know, we got this question, what's your thoughts on it? And this is kind of what he said. I'm not quoting him exactly. I just made a list here and we'll run down the list. So Marabou baits. Number one, they have a lower vibration, so that kind of translates to a more subtle presentation in the water. And Marabou has more bulk to it than a flash bait, so that's going to give the bait itself less action. And then the third thing, it's a more natural presentation in the water because it's not moving as much because it has less action. And in Johnny's estimation, it's to target more educated fish. So think pressured fish or fish that have seen a lot of baits. A Marabou bait is going to give you a slightly more natural presentation. And number four is one that we see in our underwater videos, that Marabou just rides higher in the water column compared to a very similar flash bait. Moving over to flash style baits, number one that Johnny said is it's got a lot more vibration in it. The flash is moving around a lot, so it equals an aggressive presentation. And number two, opposite of Marabou, it has less bulk in it, but it has more action. Because the flash is a lot lighter than the Marabou, it can move around in the water a lot more. And number three, what Johnny said is aggressive fish will hit aggressive baits. So that's less pressured fish. So fish that haven't seen a lot of stuff and are more active are more likely to attack a flash style bait. And number four, similar to the Marabou, our thoughts on it just by seeing our videos is that flash baits ride lower in the water column compared to a similar Marabou bait. Okay, so in our first clip here, we're going to start with the smallest size baits I have, and I'm just pick some baits off the wall. So first off, I have a triple slurp by Muskie Munchies. This is a small ticker. You guys in the States, very similar to a Kramer Revolution. And this is a small Marabou with double eights. This is by D-Ski Musky Baits. And these are similar size baits, so I would expect them to be similar in the water. So let's go check out the underwater footage of this. So as they come in through the screen, you can kind of see already that the Marabou bait rides a lot higher up in the water column. And something else that the prop style baits, they just don't have the lift of a conventional blade. So this one actually rides a little bit deeper yet than I would expect twin mag 8s to ride. But you can go back and look through that a couple times if you guys like and see how much action each one has. But I think the big takeaway there for us is one rides a little bit higher and the other one rides a little bit lower. We're going to move on to example 2, and this is one that I'm sure everybody's got in their collection. It's just a double cowgirl. Everyone has one. We used a electric bunny to compare it to. I don't have that bait here. It's in Dave's box, but I think everybody knows what an electric bunny by Musky Mayhem is. So let's run that clip here right now. Again, in the water, I'm holding the camera at the same height, and you can clearly see that the electric bunny is riding higher up. The electric bunny actually has a lot of action in it, and I think that's that combination of Marabou with some flash at the back, and it just rides a little higher in the water column. The double cowgirl's a little bit lower, but on those two clips, again, you can back this up and watch them a few times. You can see that they have a similar amount of action on the electric bunny versus the double cowgirl. Our third example, I have baits with 9s on them. So this is from Muskie Munchies. This is double 9s, marabou, pretty full tie on it. It's a lot bigger bait or longer bait than this double 9 from Spanky. But let's run these comparisons here and see what we see on these two. So right off the get-go, you can see that the Spanky runs much deeper in the water, and the Muskie Munchies, comparatively speaking, runs a lot higher up in the water column. So that's the common thread that we see through this, and I think that's one of the big takeaways that we will see at the end of all our underwater clips. So our next clip is a Dadson double 10 marabou. Again, a long profile bait versus a double 10 Dadson flash. They're actually similar in length. The marabou's a little bit longer. Let's get these in the water and have a look at these ones. So again, right off the get-go, you can definitely see, again, that the marabou is riding much higher. The flash is riding much lower. They have similar amount of action. The marabou doesn't have as much puff and as much draft as a marabou bait does, but it's really cool to see them side by side and get a feel for how each bait reacts. Okay, our last underwater comparison here is two baits made by Muskie Munchies out of Winnipeg, Manitoba. This is called a Mega Slurp. Huge bucktail with a lot of marabou in it, double counter-rotating props. This is a single prop, triple slurp with a flicker blade, he calls it, with the little tickers on it. Similar profile baits, and let's get these in the water and see how these compare to one another. Again, this one probably more than any other comparison that we showed you guys. You can see how much higher up the marabou is running in the water column compared to the conventional flash bait. And again, because the prop style baits don't have as much inherent lift as a set of mag 9s or 10s, this is going to ride deeper anyway, but just the comparison between marabou and flash, it's just really obvious to see that these just ride a lot deeper. Okay, so what does this all mean to the average angler? I don't know that it means a whole bunch, to be honest with you. It always comes down to confidence in whatever style of lure you have. And I know a lot of guys love to get marabou baits because, like, let's face it, they're just absolutely gorgeous. The amount of work that guys put into these is amazing. But based on what we've seen in the water, there's one huge takeaway, and I've kind of drilled it into everybody, that marabou rides a lot higher in the water column compared to flash. So for us, we didn't realize there was such a difference in where they rode in the water. So now when we go into a spot that's going to be shallow rocks or shallow weeds, we might be reaching for a marabou bait in a similar size to a flash that we would be expecting to use, just because we know this is going to ride 6-8 inches higher in the water column, and that could be the difference between getting snagged up on weeds or rocks and not. And again, based on what Johnny said, if we're in an area where we see a lot of pressured fish or fish that have seen a lot of baits, we may use a marabou bait as a throwback bait or a secondary bait, something that fish hasn't seen. We might just go to a marabou bait. Whether you guys choose flash or marabou for your next muskie outing, I don't know that one's going to outperform the other. I just know that there's going to be a time when flash is probably going to shine, and if you're in those pressured areas and a shallow area, think about throwing on a marabou bucktail and using it to give it to a fish that maybe has seen every other lure out there. And I think that you guys will be surprised on what you can do with a marabou bucktail. For some more cool underwater footage of some of our favorite baits, check out the video right here. And until next time, 54 Bust is out of here, and we'll catch you guys out on the water later.